Okay, so now I'm going to read a part 2 of A World Within a World. I apologize for the part 1 being cut off, so I'm going to start on what is page 38 and then finish reading that portion. And I'll probably keep this video under 30 minutes and with no visual to look at for distraction. Okay, so this is January 7th, 1955. After our Lord and Master had presented himself to us many times, and we had become accustomed to his vibrations and to the resulting force, which not only enlightened our cavern, but filled it with such positive radiance that we were transmuted to another plane of activity, we became aware that we were actually bringing into form various manifestations of the healing, restorative powers of such radiance. For instance, one among us had for a long time been the victim of running sores which proved unhealable, but by the visits of the Master and the resultant penetration of our darkened dwelling with color, sound, vibrations, the sores were healed and the skin became pure and translucent in appearance. One of us was blinded and sat for days in darkness. His sight was restored, and together we received the baptism of the Holy Spirit, which permitted us to see the inner planes and to carry on our work through them. Many were the transformations that took place in mind and body. Our emotional life was now stabilized, and we were able to dwell in the inner kingdoms without struggle, bringing forth our findings with clarity and ease. In time, we discovered how to make use of the solar substances and were permitted to experiment in fields hitherto unknown to us. We found that bird life responded very quickly, being vibrantly in rhythm. Birds were trained to become responsive to our tests. Some became messengers carrying the radiance to our comrades who were imprisoned above ground. Others were sent on errands of mercy to far distances, taking with them the healing light. We were shown great fields of dwarfed and stunted trees and plains where nothing of life seemed to be maintained. We tested the solar substance with great care and found response in full-grown verdant trees, grass, flowers, and vegetation hitherto unknown to us. These testing grounds of the earth plane may be uncovered soon so that the eyes of man may see the transformation. Okay, February 4th, 1955. Our response elucidated the power of the color sound radiations communicated by the Holy Presence and their effect upon us and upon our surroundings. This became increasingly evident as we dwelt upon the qualities within them and learned that in so doing they not only increased our will to do and to be, but also suggested to us the possibilities of manifestation in form. We thus became aware of our own indwelling presence, of the unlimited potential within, and the possibilities of creating a totally new world of form. This was a slow process, one in which we could not measure time. But before we could commit our minds to the truth that man is a creator of his own world, we had first to eliminate from consciousness all preconceived ideas, all that held us to the pattern of the man of the world, all that bound us to the negative, for only the positive would respond to tonal qualities. We dwelt in long silences, unbroken by the sound of our voices. Then again, we would be impelled to speak the creative word, aligning ourselves with its radiations. Gradually, we began to see, as it came from the void, the beginning of the word as it began to manifest in form. We beheld the shape of the idea, its coloring, the various shadings as the radiations were used to form the pattern. We saw it as though in embryo, a faint but nevertheless distinct impression of our thought forms as they were infused with the power of light. The radiations then began to increase in brilliance, and slowly we perceived that we were dealing with the actual substance of being, unformed, undifferentiated, lending itself in increasing fullness to our thought forms. We then were able to see the necessity for the long ordeal of erasing all that was unlike the pure essence of the solar substance. It could only be conceived when met on its own level of being. It became malleable and responsive to thought only when that thought equalized with its inherent awareness of pure being. We could not use it to create our desires in form unless those desires were as clear and pure in essence as were the radiations from which they came. That's a good part. It was a long, laborious task to raise our minds to the same degree of radiation. It meant constant watchfulness of every vibration sent forth. The enemy was ever with us, injecting the poison of misconception, using every allure of the flesh to conquer the man of spirit. But when we found the opposing forces too intense, we dwelt upon the love of God, as manifest through his messengers throughout the ages known to man. Also, we came to meet these great masters on their own level of being. We came to know that we were earth beings because we had so chosen, but that we might meet and mingle with beings of other planets, learning from them again, so it seemed, the truths which were a part of our inner awareness, but dulled by our life in physical form. Practice of the presence of the holy ones is a necessity, for through them one learns to vibrate in harmony with the celestial radiations. Page 41, February 11, 1955. Greetings to our beloved workers in the light who accept without witnessing, believe without proof. To recapitulate, we discovered that our color radiations were in direct relation to our state of consciousness. If it was low, then the vibrational colors were dark and gloomy. We discovered that we could bring about glorious colors in our darkened world by the power of thought. We discovered that our bodies were healed by the radiation of light in color and tone, as directed to us by our beloved. We discovered that we could manifest from the substance of being, through the tonal qualities of the radiations, that which was necessary to our well-being. Thus, we were prepared to begin to experiment with the use of substance in undifferentiated form. Pure substance of being acted upon by pure thought became a work of art, a curative essence. The producer of forms in nature, such as flowers and trees, increased and deepened the color tones and formed many shades not as yet known to man. We were years, as man counts time, experimenting with the radiations until we became sure that we were dealing with a substance which had endless powers or potentials of manifestation. Everywhere the substance was available to the man who was willing to reach into the higher dimensions and accept in faith what he found. As this substance began to envelop us in our surroundings, we found that we were out of body form as often as we were in it. We became able effortlessly to transcend the body, returning to it when the need was to keep our earth habitation. Thus we began our life of experimentation by, quote, going abroad, unquote. We conducted, along with our brothers of light on other planets, the experiments which are to be used by Earth Man when he is ready to receive them. A specific discovery is that peace has a color tone, the harmony of which, if sounded by man universally, would instantly restore him to that condition upon the earth. It has to do with the forces of nature as well as with the mental attitude of man, but has largely to do with his faith in the God of his nature. Dwell upon this. February 18, 1955, page 42. We learn by our mistakes, by our errors in judgment, by our lack of discrimination. In other words, we learned our lessons in experience just as all men must learn them. But our sense of values deepened with the experiments made. We were dealing with universal substance, with the basic reality of being. Therefore, though we might err in our understanding or approach to its use, it of itself was eternal, the life-giving quality, that upon which we could draw and did draw for our very existence in a darkened cave away from the walks of men, and as restricted as living can be. We understood that the solar radiation had a rhythmic movement, that within its movements were contained color and tone that might be heard by the ear finely attuned to the higher dimensions. We also understood that if we could make man aware of this condition of being, he would never return to his present manner of life. We were faced, therefore, with the necessity not only of continuing our experiments, but of finding a way to make them known to man on the subjective planes, so that he might discover for himself that which he knew to be the very law and foundation of his being, and thereafter would begin to manifest the results of such knowledge. Just as naturally as he ate, breathed, and slept, he would create from the pure substance of being the ideas which, through his creative ability, he could bring into manifestation. Long, arduous days and nights were spent in theorizing over how we might be able to bring to the consciousness of man knowledge now needful for his survival upon the planet on which he finds himself. The solution seems to lie within the fact that we, as men of earth, though far removed from its activities, have become aware of this great truth, and by our daily efforts were able to bring forth results which were astounding to us and which would revolutionize the consciousness of man. Our contacts with beings of other planets made it clear to us that we could learn from them how they had achieved such results, how they applied what they knew as reality to their objective life, how watchful they must be in so doing, for while they were evolved far beyond the awareness of the Earth Man, yet they too had their problems. Among them, the restoration of the solar being as it left the Earth plane existence and came to their planet and or planets for recuperation and for teaching. Thus, we discovered that many had the solar substance injection before returning to Earth to help their fellow man, but that the time is now for all men of Earth to become aware of the potentiality of their being before Earth is swept away from him. Okay, page 43, February 25th, 1955. Color and tone, as you have been told, are the direct results of the vibration of light, i.e., radiation. Solar radiation is the power within the vibrations. Color and tone are the concomitants of such radiation. As they increase in speed or in high dimensional quality, they become more vibrant and therefore more brilliant. They are then unrecognizable to the man whose consciousness is not in tune with the higher vibrations. Were they to be seen, they would appear only as brilliant white light, which would be unbearable in its intensity. Solar radiation, therefore, must be relayed to the man of Earth in a degree which will not prove injurious to him. It must also be radiated in such a manner that resistance is not set up to it, which could easily be the result of a higher degree of radiation than his body's physical, mental, or emotional can sustain. It is therefore a very delicate manipulation to learn how to use and to earn the right to use the solar radiations, to interpret them as to their tonal qualities, and to relay them into the mind of man through prepared channels. Now, we, through receptivity and daily experiment, have tested the degree which we could tolerate and its effect upon the substance around us. We have noted the response in the physical reaction of our bodies, in the skin tones, hair, and eyes. We, in fact, have remade our physical bodies, but we have also had to consider the effect upon our emotional and mental vehicles. These have been accelerated far beyond their normal scope, and in adjustment to each degree of infiltration has to be made. Thus it is that a specific degree of radiation is now being injected into man. Before Earth can change and bear good fruits, his entire consciousness must be raised to carry the degree of light which will make it possible. No longer must he prepare for death by destructive weapons. He must be prepared to realize that his very thought forces carry destruction or its opposite. Bear the thought in mind that man creates either his good or his evil by the power of his thought. We discovered that the essence or substance of being is ever present within the radiations. As we came to use them, we could do many things of which we were not previously capable. The very tones of the vibrations were capable of creating physical ease, calmness of approach, and serenity of mind. We learned to attune ourselves to a delicate beauty of sound within the finer vibrations. We learned also to make ourselves so receptive to the light waves as they came to us that we could mingle with them and become one with their radiations. Thus, while we were attempting to record the results of our findings, we became what you might call etherealized. Our bodies were refined to a pure channel for the stream of light now being transmitted to us. Our coarse daily diet merely sufficed to maintain life, but we came to know that we needed very little food in order to keep our bodies strong, fine, and clean. We were at all times absorbing the rarefied essence of the true quality of being. Our auras took on tremendously brilliant colorings, and with such transformation came the ability to translate our consciousness to a place where we could unite with those who were receiving the higher instructions. And I'm going to pause here and continue more later. Thanks.